Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. So today in this video we are going to learn about types of joints and what are joints. So first I will tell you what are joints. Joints are places where two bones meet. So I have given one example here of joint as you can see on my screen. So here in our elbow there are two bones meeting. One is the upper part and downer part. So these bones meet on a center place which is known as joint. So let's move on next. There are two types of classification of joints which are immovable or fixed joint which is in our skull, and other one is movable joint. Movable joints are not only one, there are many movable joints. So for example, one of the movable joint is in our neck. So I will tell you few movable joints in our body. So first is pivot joint. This is in our neck. Ball and socket joint which are in our shoulder and near our abdomen. And next is gliding joint. It is in our spine, the leg and even in our hand. This was gliding joint, and let's move on to hinge joint. This hinge joint is in our elbow and in our knee. So let's move on to our next slide. So now I will show you one example of immovable or fixed joint. The immovable or fixed joint in our body is only one, which is in our skull. So now the pivot joint, which is a movable joint, I will tell few points about the pivot joint. As in our neck, it allows us to turn our head from side to side, upwards and downwards. This pivot joint helps our face or neck to move sideways, left and right, upwards, up and down. This type of joint is found between the first bone atlas and the second bone axis of the vertebral column next to the head. So next to the head, upper part is atlas and second part down one is axis. The atlas bone helps us to nod our head and say yes. So using atlas bone we can make our head saying yes like up and down. And the axis bone, which is the second bone, it helps us to nod our head and say no. So let's move on to our next slide. Now I will explain you what is ball and socket joint. So these are the parts where ball and socket joint is found. So hip and shoulder joints are the most mobile joints in the human body. As you know, the hip and our shoulder is the most mobile joint. It is the most moving joint in our human body. They allow us to swing our arms and legs in different directions. These bones help to move our arm and legs in different directions. These joints allow for the greatest freedom of movement. These joints only help us to move very nicely. One bone has a ball-shaped head which nestles into a concave socket of the second bone. Example are hip joint and shoulder joint. So here is a ball. As you can see in your shoulder, it is rounded from the corner until our neck, it is the socket. So this part where my cursor is, it is the ball, and the cursor where it is now is the socket. So let's move on to our next slide. So in this slide we are going to learn about gliding joints. So gliding joints are those in which nearly flat surface glide across each other as in vertebrae or the spine. So these are the parts I am mentioning now, those are gliding joints. So in our spine, we can move because the gliding joint in our spine helps our spine or vertebrae to glide against each other. So this helps us to glide and we can move our body freely. These joints enable the person to bend forward, backward, sideways as well as rotate. So using these joints we can move backward, forward, sideways as well as we can even rotate. Some in our wrist and ankles move by gliding against each other. So let's move on to our next slide. So here I am telling you about hinge joint. So now I am mentioning the place where hinge joint is found. It is found in our elbow and in our knee. So in short words, knee is also known as patella or kneecap. So let's learn few new points about hinge joint. As in our knee and elbow, it allows movements like the opening and closing of a hinged door but in one direction. So as you can bend your leg because of hinge joints, but you can bend in only one direction as you can see the hinge on the door. Hinge joints like elbow and knee work like the hinges on a door. They allow movement backward and forward but only up to a certain range. You can move your leg and elbow but only in a certain range. Otherwise, if you move your leg more than the certain range, it may be a bone fracture. Hinge joints allow up and down movements but do not allow easy movement from side to side. You can move your leg downwards and upwards, but it is a little bit difficult to move it side to side, left and right. This joint is very strong but allows movement in one plane, for example, the elbow and the joint. In such joints, the bones can move only one direction. So let's move on to our next slide. So now I am telling you about a disease called arthritis. Arthritis is a disease of joints. So arthritis is a disease which can cause few problems to our joints. It causes pain in the joints. It can even cause pain in joints. So even the ligament in the joints, it also gets dried up because of the disease known as arthritis. This is all for my today's video. Thank you for watching my video. Please like my videos, share my channel and also subscribe. Thank you.